The celebration that followed the vote was unlike anything the Galactic Council had seen in centuries. Council members who had been afraid just hours before now crowded around Ambassador Yuna, eager to shake her hand, touch her shoulder, or simply stand near her. It was as if they believed some of her species' legendary strength might transfer to them through contact. Yuna accepted their attention with grace and patience, smiling at each new face, answering the same questions again and again. Yes, humans did breathe oxygen. No, they could not survive in vacuum without suits. Yes, they did feel pain. Yes, they could die. They were not immortal. They were just stubborn. High Counselor Taiho watched the scene from his elevated seat. Beside him stood Hana, Minho, and Jisoo. All three looked exhausted but relieved. I did not expect that outcome, Minho admitted. I was certain Dosu would convince more members to vote against. The ambassador's speech changed everything, Jisoo said. She spoke like a person, not like a threat. That made all the difference. Taiho nodded slowly. The prophecy speaks of trembling, but perhaps it does not mean what we thought. Perhaps the galaxy will tremble with excitement, not fear. Perhaps the children of Kirath Vyar will shake us out of our comfort and make us grow. That is an optimistic interpretation, Hana said. I am feeling optimistic today, Taiho replied with a small smile. It has been a long time since anything truly new happened in this galaxy. Humans might be exactly what we need. Down in the crowd, Yuna finally managed to escape the press of curious aliens. She found a quiet corner and allowed herself a moment to breathe. Her feet hurt from standing for so long. Her face hurt from smiling. But inside she felt a joy that was hard to describe. A figure approached her. It was the young council member Somi, the one who had asked Yuna to speak for herself. Ambassador, Somi said with a respectful bow, I wanted to thank you. Yuna raised an eyebrow. Thank me? For what? You are the one who gave me a chance to speak. That is exactly what I am thanking you for. You did not waste that chance. You could have made threats. You could have demanded respect based on your species' reputation. Instead, you reminded us that you are just people. That took courage. Yuna laughed softly. I do not think I had much choice. The alternatives were all worse. That is exactly what the prophecy describes, Somi said. When faced with impossible situations, humans find a way. You just proved it. Before Yuna could respond, another figure appeared. It was Taiho himself, walking slowly through the crowd. Beings parted before him like water around a stone. When he reached Yuna, he stopped and looked at her with those old golden eyes. Ambassador Yuna, he said formally. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I officially welcome Earth to our community of worlds. You are now one of us, with all the rights and responsibilities that come with membership. Yuna bowed deeply. Thank you, High Counselor. My people are honored beyond words. Taiho glanced around to make sure no one was listening too closely, then leaned in and lowered his voice. May I speak frankly with you? Of course. Your species frightens me, Taiho admitted. Even now, after the vote, after your beautiful speech, I am still afraid. The prophecy speaks of things I cannot fully understand. But I have lived long enough to know that fear is not always a reason to attack. Sometimes fear is a sign that something important is happening. Something that could change everything. Yuna listened carefully. She understood the weight of what he was saying. I chose to vote in your favor, Taiho continued. Not because I am sure it was the right choice. I'm not sure. I may never be sure. But I believe that having humans as friends gives us a chance. A chance to learn. A chance to grow. A chance to face whatever the future holds with allies who never give up. He straightened and spoke at normal volume again. So welcome, Ambassador. Welcome to the galaxy. I hope we can become worthy of your friendship. Yuna smiled. "Hi, Counselor. I hope we can become worthy of yours as well." Later that night, when the celebration had finally ended and the great hall had emptied, Yuna stood alone on her platform once more. The stars shone through the crystal walls, distant and beautiful. Somewhere out there was Earth, home. HFY War. She thought about everything that had happened. The fear in the council's eyes, the ancient prophecy, the stories of her world's impossible survival. She had always known Earth was special, but she had never imagined how special. Billions of years of destruction, and her world had endured. Billions of years of death, and her people had survived. The unbroken world. She liked the sound of it. Her communication device buzzed. A message from home, requesting a full report of the proceedings. Yuna smiled and began composing her response. There was so much to tell, so much to explain. The people of Earth needed to know what had happened here. They needed to understand their place in the galaxy. As she wrote, she realized something important. The council had welcomed humans because they were afraid of what might happen if they did not. That was not ideal. True friendship was not built on fear, but it was a start, a foundation they could build on. In the months and years to come, humans would prove themselves. They would show the galaxy that they were more than just survivors. They would share their art and music, their science and philosophy, their strange and wonderful ways of seeing the universe. They would make friends, real friends, beings who loved them not because of fear, but because of who they truly were. And maybe, just maybe, the prophecy would come true in a way no one expected. The galaxy would tremble, but it would tremble with laughter as humans told their jokes. It would tremble with music as humans shared their songs. It would tremble with change as humans pushed everyone to try new things, to take risks, to reach for the impossible, because that was what humans did. They reached for the impossible and made it real. They stared into the darkness and found light. They fell down and got back up, again and again, forever and always. The children of HFY had finally come home to the stars. And the galaxy would never be the same. Yuna finished her report and sent it to Earth. Then she walked to the great windows and looked out at the endless night. Her reflection stared back at her, small and ordinary against the vast backdrop of space. She did not feel small, though. She felt connected to her world, to her ancestors, to every human who had ever survived the impossible. Their strength flowed through her veins. Their courage beat in her heart. "We made it," she whispered to the stars. "We finally made it." Somewhere, across the impossible distances of space, she knew that Earth was spinning on, doing what it had always done, surviving, thriving, refusing to break. No matter what the universe threw at it. KY VOR. The unbroken world. Home. The end. The Great Hall was in chaos. 2 full days had passed since Ambassador Yuna first spoke the name of her world, and the fear had only grown stronger. Council members shouted at each other across the chamber. Some demanded immediate action against Earth. Others called for calm. A few had already left, returning to their home worlds to prepare defenses against a threat that might never come. Hi, Councilor Taiho stood at his elevated seat and raised both hands for silence. It took several minutes for the noise to fade enough for him to speak. "Council members, please," he called out. "We must have order. We must discuss this matter properly, with wisdom and reason, not with panic and fear." A tall being with red scales and sharp teeth rose from his seat. His name was Dosu, and he represented a military alliance of 17 worlds. His voice was loud and harsh. "Wisdom? Reason? Have you read the prophecy, High Counselor? The children of HFY will make the galaxy tremble. Those are not words of peace. Those are words of conquest. We must act now, while they are still weak. Shouts of agreement came from several corners of the hall. Ambassador Yuna watched from her platform, keeping her face calm even as her heart beat faster. She still did not fully understand what was happening, but she understood enough to know that her world was in danger. Counselor Jisoo rose to speak. Her voice was calm and steady. Council Member Dosu, I understand your fear. We all feel it. But fear is a poor guide for such important decisions. We have spent the past 2 days studying Earth and its people. What we learned should change how you think about this situation. Nothing will change what I think, Dosu growled. The prophecy is clear. Humans are dangerous. End them now before they end us. The prophecy says humans cannot be ended, Jisoo replied. That is exactly the point. Many have tried to destroy Earth over millions of years. Asteroids, ice ages, volcanic destruction. None of it worked. What makes you think we could succeed where the universe itself has failed? Dosu hesitated for just a moment. Other council members began to murmur, considering her words. Councilor Menho stepped forward, carrying a tablet. I have studied military history for 200 years. I have never seen a species like humans. They do not fight like other species fight. When they are defeated, they come back stronger. When they are pushed to the edge, they push back harder. They are not dangerous because they want war. They are dangerous because they never stop. Never. Under any circumstances. He pressed a button and images appeared on the great screens around the hall. Scenes from human history. Wars, disasters, plagues, famines. But also scenes of rebuilding. Cities rising from ashes. People helping each other after floods. Scientists working to cure diseases. Through every darkness, humans had found a way forward. Look at this, Minho continued. Humans turned against each other with weapons that could destroy their entire world. They came to the very edge of complete destruction. Any other species would have fallen over that edge. But humans stopped. They pulled back. They chose survival, even when destruction was easier. That proves nothing, said another council member, a being of pure energy that flickered with agitation. It only shows they are capable of extreme violence. It shows they are capable of extreme everything, Minho replied. Violence, yes, but also compassion. Destruction, yes, but also creation. They contain opposites within themselves. That is what makes them unique. That is what makes them survivors. Councilor Hana took her turn to speak. I am a scientist. I study life across many worlds. Let me tell you something important. Every other intelligent species we know developed in easy conditions. Pleasant planets with stable climates. Gentle environments that encourage growth. Humans are the only intelligent species we have ever found that developed on a death world. The term sent fresh whispers through the hall. Death world. It was a classification reserved for the most hostile planets in the galaxy. Places where survival was nearly impossible. Earth is actively trying to kill its inhabitants at all times, Hana continued. The ground shakes and splits open. The mountains explode with fire. The weather changes from burning hot to freezing cold within single cycles. Diseases evolve constantly, always finding new ways to attack. Other predators hunt humans as food. And yet humans did not just survive. They conquered. They spread across their entire world and became the dominant species. She paused, letting her words sink in. This is not a species we created. This is not a species we can control. This is a species that was forged by 4 billion years of constant struggle. They are what they are because they had no other choice. Destruction made them. And destruction cannot unmake them. Dosu slammed his clawed hand against his seat. Then what do you suggest? We simply welcome them? Pretend they are not a threat? Wait until they decide to attack us? They have no reason to attack us, Jisoo said firmly. Look at the ambassador. Look at her face. She came here seeking friendship and trade. She did not come to threaten us. She does not even understand why we are afraid. All eyes turned to Yuna. She stood straight and met their gazes without flinching. In that moment, several council members noticed something. Despite being alone, despite being surrounded by hostile strangers, despite facing the possibility of her world's destruction, she showed no fear. Her hands were steady. Her eyes were clear. She simply stood and waited. That right there, Minho said quietly. That is what I am talking about. Look at her. She knows something is wrong. She knows we might declare war on her people. And she is not afraid. She is ready. For anything. That is what it means to be human. The hall fell silent. Council members looked at Ambassador Yuna with new eyes. Not as a representative of a dangerous species, but as a product of everything they had learned. A survivor. An unbreakable being from an unbreakable world. Taeho finally spoke. His voice was heavy with the weight of the decision before them. We have heard arguments from both sides. Now we must vote. The question is simple. Do we welcome Earth into the Galactic Council, or do we declare them a threat and respond accordingly? Wait, said a small voice from the back of the hall. A young council member from a peaceful world of scholars stepped forward. Her name was Somi, and she had barely spoken during her time on the council. But now she had something to say. I have been listening to all of this, Somi said. The fear, the analysis, the debate. But I think everyone is missing the most important point. Speak, Taeho said. Somi walked toward the center of the hall, toward Ambassador Yuna's platform. You talk about humans as if they are a force of nature, something to be feared or controlled. But they are people, individuals, with hopes and dreams and families and fears of their own. She stopped near Yuna and looked up at her. Ambassador, you have been standing here for 2 days, listening to us argue about whether your species should be destroyed. What do you have to say? The hall went completely silent. Every eye was on Yuna. This was her moment. Whatever she said next could determine the fate of her entire world. Yuna took a deep breath. Then she smiled. I think, she said slowly, that you are all making this much more complicated than it needs to be. Surprised murmurs rippled through the crowd. We came here because we were curious, Yuna continued. Because we looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Because we wanted to meet new beings and learn new things. We did not come to fight. We did not come to conquer. We came to say hello. She looked around the hall at the thousands of alien faces. Yes, our history is violent. Yes, we have survived terrible things. But that is not all we are. We are also artists and scientists and builders and dreamers. We create beautiful things. We love our children. We help strangers in need. We are complicated, like all intelligent beings are complicated. Yuna spread her hands. You can fear us if you want, or you can get to know us. The choice is yours. But I can promise you this. If you treat us as friends, we will be the best friends you have ever had. We are loyal. We are brave. And we never give up on the people we care about. The silence that followed was different from before. It was thoughtful instead of fearful. Dosu still looked angry, but even he seemed uncertain now. The young council member Somi was smiling. High Counselor Taeho was stroking his chin, thinking deeply. Well, Taeho said finally, I believe it is time for that vote. The voting took only moments. Each council member pressed their choice on their personal screen. The results appeared on the great display for all to see. The decision was not unanimous. Some had voted against Earth, but the majority had made their choice. Earth was welcome. Yuna felt her knees go weak with relief. But she stayed standing, maintaining her composure as a representative of her world should. Behind her calm face, her heart was singing. They had done it. Humanity had passed its first test. The galaxy would not destroy them. Now they just had to prove they deserved that trust. The private chamber was filled with screens now. Every available display showed information about Earth and its people. Counselor Hana had requested complete records from every probe and scout ship that had ever observed the human world. What she found made her unable to sleep. She sat alone in the dim room, her three eyes moving rapidly across the data. Numbers and images flashed before her, each one more impossible than the last. She had spent her entire career studying life on different worlds. She thought she understood how species survived and evolved. But nothing in her experience had prepared her for this. "Computer," she said quietly, "display the temperature range that humans can survive." The screen showed the numbers. Humans had survived in places where water froze solid and stayed frozen for months. They had also survived in places where the sun burned so hot that water disappeared into the air. The range was incredible. Most species could only live in one type of environment. Humans had spread to almost every environment their world offered. "Display the pressure range," Anna continued. Again. The numbers were shocking. Humans lived at the bottom of deep valleys where the air was thick and heavy. They also lived on top of tall mountains where the air was thin and hard to breathe. Some had even learned to dive deep into their oceans, where the pressure would crush most beings. Hana leaned back in her chair and rubbed her tired eyes. "Display a list of natural disasters that humans have survived in the past 1,000 years alone." The list was long. Earthquakes that destroyed entire cities. Waves taller than buildings that swept across coastlines. Mountains that exploded with fire and ash. Storms that could level forests. Floods that covered the land for weeks. Each disaster had killed many humans. But each time, the survivors rebuilt. Sometimes they rebuilt in the exact same dangerous places, as if daring the universe to try again. The door opened and Counselor Minho walked in. He looked as tired as Hana felt. In his hands, he carried a tablet filled with his own research. "I have been studying their military history," he said, sitting down heavily in a chair across from her. "I cannot believe what I found." "Tell me," Hana said. Minho activated his tablet and more images appeared. Battles, wars, conflicts of every size and type. "Humans have been fighting each other for their entire recorded history," he said. "They've invented more ways to kill than any species I have ever studied. Weapons that cut, weapons that burn, weapons that explode, weapons that poison, weapons that can destroy entire cities in a single flash." "We knew they were violent," Hana said. "Yes, but that is not what amazes me." Minho pointed to a specific image. "Look at this." A human soldier in a war that happened about 80 years ago by their counting. He was shot multiple times, lost one of his legs, and was left for dead on the battlefield. "Do you know what he did?" Hana shook her head. "He crawled for 3 days through mud and rain to reach his allies. 3 days. With no leg. With bullets still inside his body. And when he finally reached safety, he asked when he could return to fighting." Hana stared at the image. The soldier looked so young, so ordinary. But the fire in his eyes was something she had never seen in any species before. "I found hundreds of stories like this," Minho continued. "Thousands. Humans who should have died but refused. Humans who fought when fighting was hopeless. Humans who kept going long after any reasonable being would have stopped. It is not courage. It is something else. Something deeper. Something built into their very nature. The prophecy calls them the unbroken," Hana said quietly. "The prophecy is correct. I have studied warriors from 50 different species. None of them compare to humans. Not because humans are stronger or faster. They are not. But because humans simply do not quit. They do not know how to quit. Surrender is not in their blood. Jisoo entered the room, carrying cups of warm drink. She handed one to each of them and sat down with her own. Her face was pale and troubled. I have been studying their medicine, she said. The things they do to save lives are disturbing. What do you mean? Hannah asked. When a human body part fails, they cut it out and replace it with a part from another human. Or they build a machine to do the work instead. When their hearts stop beating, they use electricity to start them again. When they cannot breathe, they put tubes down their throats and force air into their lungs. They fight death with every tool they can imagine. Jisoo took a long drink from her cup. In most cultures, death is accepted when it comes. It is seen as natural, even peaceful. But humans treat death as an enemy to be defeated. They rage against it. They scream at it. They refuse to accept it, even when all hope is gone. The 3 council members sat in silence for a moment, thinking about what they had learned. In the great hall above, the waiting continued. More and more council members were demanding answers. Rumors were spreading faster than anyone could control. There is one more thing I found, Hannah said finally. Something that might explain why the prophecy calls their world the Unbroken. She touched her screen, and a new image appeared. It showed the dark emptiness of space, with a single tiny dot in the distance. 60 years ago by their counting, humans left their world for the first time. They flew through empty space to reach their moon. It took 3 days each way. They had almost no protection from the dangers of space. Their technology was so simple that our children would laugh at it. And on the way back, their ship was damaged. An explosion destroyed part of their life support system. Minho and Jisoo leaned forward, watching the image closely. They should have died, Hannah continued. By every calculation, they should have died. They were days away from home, running out of air, losing heat, barely able to control their ship. Any other species would have accepted their fate and waited for the end. What did they do? Minho asked. They fixed it. With tape, with cardboard, with pieces of other equipment that were never meant for this purpose. They built a solution from nothing, kept themselves alive, and brought their ship back home safely. 3 humans, alone in the most dangerous environment possible, facing certain death. And they refused to die. The image changed to show the 3 humans after they returned. They were thin and tired, but they were smiling. They looked happy, as if they had just returned from a pleasant trip rather than a brush with death. This is what we are dealing with, Hannah said. A species that does not understand the word impossible. A species that looks at death and sees a problem to be solved, not a fate to be accepted. A species that has been forged by billions of years of destruction and has come out stronger every single time. Minho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars filled the darkness. Somewhere out there was Earth, Kirathvias, the unbroken world. I am a military advisor, he said slowly. I have planned battles against dozens of species. I have studied their weaknesses, their fears, their breaking points. Every species has a breaking point, a limit where they give up and stop fighting. He turned to face the others. His face was serious. Humans do not have a breaking point. I have looked for it. It does not exist. You can hurt them, kill them, destroy everything they love. And they will keep coming. They will keep fighting. They will never stop until they win or until every last one of them is dead. And even then, I am not certain they would stop. Jisoo nodded slowly. So what do we do? Some council members already want to declare Earth a threat and destroy it. They say it is better to act now, before humans become more powerful. That would be the worst possible decision, Minho said firmly. First, because I do not believe we could succeed. If the prophecy is true, Earth cannot be destroyed. Others have tried. Second, because even if we somehow managed it, the survivors would never forgive us. And survivors there would be. There are always survivors with humans. They would come for us eventually. Maybe in 100 years. Maybe in 1,000. But they would come. Then we must make peace, Hana said. We must welcome them. Make them part of our community. Give them no reason to see us as enemies. That is what the keeper advised, Jisoo agreed. I think we must convince the rest of the council. The fear is spreading, but fear can be overcome with knowledge. We must show them what we have learned. Help them understand. Minho picked up his tablet and began organizing his research. Then let us prepare our presentation. We do not have much time. The council is growing impatient. Ambassador Yuna is still waiting alone in that hall. The 3 council members worked through the night, gathering evidence, building their case. Above them, in the great hall, the children of Kirith Vior waited patiently. They had waited through ice ages and extinction events. They could wait a little longer. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known universe. It floated in the empty space between 3 star systems, a massive station made of white metal and crystal that could hold 10,000 beings at once. Today, every seat was filled. Ambassador Yuna stood at the center of the speaking platform. She was a small woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with a small flag on her shoulder. Around her, thousands of alien faces watched with curiosity. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no faces at all, just floating lights or moving shadows. She had practiced her speech many times on the long journey here, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Yuna began, her voice steady and clear. I come before you as the representative of my world. We have traveled far to reach you. We have studied your languages, your customs, and your laws. We come in peace, seeking friendship and trade. We wish to join your great community of worlds. The translation devices hummed softly, converting her words into 1,000 different languages. The council members listened with polite attention. They had heard speeches like this before. Every few centuries, a new species would discover faster than light travel and make their way to the council. Most were welcomed without much trouble. The galaxy was big enough for everyone. High Counselor Taiho sat in the central chair, high above the speaking platform. He was old, even by the standards of his long-lived species. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes were large and golden. He had served on the council for 300 years and had seen many new species join. He found the process boring but necessary. Thank you, Ambassador, Taiho said, his deep voice echoing through the hall. Your journey has been long, and your words are kind. Before we can consider your application, we must complete the formal registration. Please state the name of your world. Yuna nodded. This was the easy part. Our world is called Earth. The word hung in the air for a moment. Then the ancient translation matrix, a device older than most civilizations in the room, began to process the name. The matrix was not just a translator. It was a keeper of history, connected to records that went back millions of years. When a new world was named, the matrix searched for any previous references, any ancient connections. Usually, this took less than a second. New worlds were new. They had no history in the galactic records, but this time, the matrix hummed longer. The lights on its surface flickered. A strange symbol appeared on the great screen behind Yuna. Then words formed, written in the oldest script known to the council. Ky Wrath-VOR. The hall fell completely silent. Taiho felt his heart stop for a moment. He knew that name. Every educated being in the galaxy knew that name, though most thought it was just a myth. A story told to frighten children. "That cannot be correct," said Counselor Mana, a tall woman with silver hair and 3 eyes. Her voice was shaking. "Run the translation again." The Matrix processed the name a second time. The result was the same. HFY, the unbroken world. Whispers spread through the hall like fire through dry grass. Beings who had sat calmly moments before were now standing, talking urgently with their neighbors. Some were already moving toward the exits. Taiho raised his hand for silence, but it took several minutes for the noise to die down. "Ambassador," Taiho said carefully, "are you certain that is the name of your world?" "Earth?" Yuna looked confused. She did not understand what was happening. "Yes, High Counselor, Earth. It is what we have always called it. Is there a problem?" Taiho did not answer immediately. He looked at the other senior council members. Hannah was pale. Counselor Minho, a military advisor with broad shoulders and sharp eyes, was already pulling up files on his personal screen. Counselor Jisoo, known for her calm nature, was gripping the arms of her chair so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. "Ambassador Yuna," Taiho said slowly, "please wait here. The council must discuss something in private. This session is temporarily paused." He stood and walked toward a side door, followed by the other senior members. Yuna watched them go, completely confused. She had prepared for many things. Difficult questions, political challenges, maybe even rejection. But she had not prepared for this. The entire council looked afraid, and she had no idea why. As the doors closed behind the senior members, the whispers in the hall grew louder. Yuna caught fragments of conversation from the beings nearest to her. They were all saying the same word, over and over again. "Ky wrath-vor, Kareth vor, ky wrath-vor." She did not know what it meant. But from the fear in their eyes, she understood that it was something terrible, or something powerful, or perhaps both. In the private chamber, the senior council members stood in a circle. Nobody wanted to speak first. Finally, Hana broke the silence. "It could be a coincidence," she said, though her voice made it clear she did not believe her own words. "The translation matrix is old. It makes mistakes sometimes." "The matrix has never made a mistake," Minho said firmly. "Not once in 4 million years. If it says their world is Karethves, then their world is Karethves." "But Karethvel is a legend," Jisoo said. "A prophecy. It speaks of a world that cannot be destroyed. A world whose children would walk through fire and ice and death itself and still survive. We always thought it was just a story." Taiho walked to the window and looked out at the stars. His mind was racing through everything he knew about the prophecy. The unbroken world, the death planet, the place where life refused to end, no matter how hard the universe tried to kill it. "If the prophecy is true," he said quietly, "then we are looking at the most dangerous species in the entire galaxy. Not because they want to harm us, but because nothing can harm them. They have already survived things that would have destroyed any other world. What do we do?" Hannah asked. Taiho turned back to face them. For the first time in 300 years, he felt truly afraid. "First," he said, "we need to learn everything we can about Earth. Everything. Their history, their wars, their disasters. We need to understand exactly what we are dealing with. And we need to do it before anyone in that hall does something foolish out of fear." The others nodded. Minho was already calling for the archive keepers. The real investigation was about to begin. In the Great Hall, Ambassador Yuna stood alone on the platform, surrounded by thousands of frightened eyes. She still did not understand what was happening. But deep in her heart, she felt a strange pride. Whatever HFY meant, whatever Earth's true name represented, It had made the entire galaxy pay attention. Her world was no longer unknown. And soon, everyone would understand exactly what it meant to come from Earth. The Council archives were located deep beneath the main hall, in chambers carved from a single massive crystal. The crystal was said to be older than most stars. It held information from civilizations that had risen and fallen long before any current council member was born. Very few beings were allowed to enter the archives. Even fewer understood what they contained. High Counselor Taiho walked through the glowing corridors, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Behind him came Hana, Minho, and Jisoo. None of them spoke. The weight of what they were about to learn pressed down on them like a physical force. At the center of the archives sat the Keeper. Nobody knew the Keeper's real name or species. The Keeper had been here for as long as anyone could remember. A small figure wrapped in gray robes, with eyes that seemed to look through time itself. When the council members approached, the Keeper did not seem surprised. "You have come about HFY," the Keeper said. It was not a question. "Yes," Taiho replied. "We need to know everything. The prophecy, the history, all of it." The Keeper nodded slowly and raised one thin hand. The crystals around them began to glow brighter, and images appeared in the air. Ancient symbols, star maps, and records that had not been accessed in millions of years. HFY, the Keeper began, is not just a name. It is a warning. The beings who created this archive were the first to map the galaxy. They discovered many worlds, classified many species. But one world made them afraid. A small blue planet orbiting a yellow star in a quiet corner of the galaxy. They named it HFY, the Unbroken World. The images shifted to show a young planet covered in fire and smoke. Massive rocks fell from the sky, striking the surface with terrible force. The oceans boiled. The land cracked and burned. When Earth was young, the Keeper continued, it suffered a collision with another planet. The impact was so great that it should have destroyed all possibility of life. The surface melted. The atmosphere was stripped away. Any other world would have become a dead rock, forever empty. But Earth survived. It healed. And life began anyway. Minho leaned forward, his military mind already calculating. "One event does not make a prophecy," he said. "One event, no," the Keeper agreed. But this was only the beginning. More images appeared. Ice covering the entire planet from pole to pole. Then fire erupting from thousands of mountains at once. Then darkness as something blocked out the sun. Each image showed complete destruction, the kind that should have ended everything. Earth has suffered at least 5 major extinction events, the Keeper said. Events that killed most life on the planet. Any other world would have become barren forever after just one such disaster. But Earth kept producing new life. Stronger life. More adaptable life. Each catastrophe only made the survivors tougher. Hannah's 3 eyes were wide with disbelief. How is that possible? The mathematical probability of surviving even 2 such events is nearly 0. That is why the Ancient Ones created the prophecy, the Keeper said. They could not explain it with science. They could only describe what they observed. HFY was a world that refused to die. And they predicted that one day, the children of that world would reach the stars. Jisoo stepped closer to the floating images. What did the prophecy say about these children? The humans? The Keeper was silent for a moment. Then new words appeared in the air, written in that ancient script. From HFY shall come beings born in fire. They shall know suffering as a mother knows her child. Death shall walk beside them as a familiar friend. They shall break, but never shatter. They shall fall, but always rise. And when they reach the stars, the galaxy shall tremble, for nothing it sends against them shall be enough. The words hung in the air, glowing softly. The council members read them again and again, trying to understand their full meaning. The prophecy is 4 million years old, the keeper added. The beings who wrote it are long gone, but their warning remains. They believed that any species from HFY would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, not because of technology or weapons, but because of what they had already survived. Taiho thought about the small woman standing alone in the great hall above them. Ambassador Yuna looked so ordinary, so calm. Could she really be descended from such a world? Could her species truly have survived things that would have destroyed any other? We need more information, he said. Specific information about human history, what they have actually faced. The prophecy speaks of ancient disasters, but what about recent times? What have they done since then? The keeper nodded and touched the crystal walls. New images appeared, but these were different. These came from more recent records, gathered by scout ships and observation probes that have been watching Earth for the past few centuries. Humans have a short memory, the keeper said. They forgot the prophecy long ago. They forgot they ever had contact with the stars. But their nature remained the same. They continued to face destruction, again and again, in forms both natural and self-created. The images showed disease sweeping across continents, killing millions. Wars that burned cities to ash. Famines that starved entire nations. Natural disasters that struck without warning. Through it all, humans kept building, kept growing, kept spreading across their world. They fight each other constantly, Minho observed. Their history is filled with war. Yes, the keeper agreed. But notice what happens after each war. They rebuild faster than before. They learn. They adapt. Their greatest advances often come from their darkest times. Suffering makes them stronger. It always has. Hana shook her head in wonder. This should not be possible. Any species that fights so much should destroy itself. That is what happens to violent species. They burn out before they reach the stars. Humans are different, the keeper said simply. They stand at the edge of death and laugh. They look into the darkness and find reasons to hope. They are broken, yes, but they are never defeated. That is what it means to be from HFY. Jizu had been quiet for a long time, thinking. Now she spoke. If all this is true, then we have a serious problem. There are council members who will see humans as a threat. They will want to destroy Earth before humans can become powerful. Such an action would be foolish, the keeper warned. The prophecy is clear. Nothing sent against HFY has ever succeeded. The ancient ones tried. Others tried after them. All failed. The world endures. The children endure. That is their nature. Then what do you suggest? Taiho asked. The keeper looked at him with those ancient, timeless eyes. I suggest you welcome them. Make them your friends. Because if the prophecy is true, and I believe it is, then having the children of HFY as allies would make your council the strongest force in the galaxy. But having them as enemies, the keeper did not finish the sentence. The warning was clear enough. Taiho looked at his fellow council members. They all understood what needed to be done. But understanding and doing were different things. Fear was already spreading through the great hall above. Some members would never accept humans, no matter what the prophecy said. We need to control this situation carefully, Taiho said. No panic. No rash decisions. We go back up there and we continue the proceedings calmly. We gather more information. We make our decision based on facts, not fear. The others nodded in agreement. But as they walked back toward the lifts that would carry them to the surface, each of them felt the same cold feeling in their chest. They were about to face the descendants of HFY, the unbroken, the survivors, and they had no idea how the rest of the galaxy would react. Above them, Ambassador Yuna still waited on the platform. She had spent the time studying the beings around her, trying to understand their fear. She noticed that some had moved closer, curious despite their worry. Others had moved as far away as possible, as if distance could protect them from whatever they feared. She did not know about the prophecy. She did not know about Kirith Vyas. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever was happening, whatever her world's true name meant, she would not let fear defeat her. That was not the human way. Her ancestors had survived ice ages and asteroids, plagues and wars. They had looked death in the face 1,000 times and kept going. She carried that strength in her blood, in her bones, in every breath she took. Whatever came next, she would be ready.